This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Hing.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Transformation with Tara Sutphen. Tara Sutphen is the author of Blame It on Your Past Lives and Soul Agreements. 3 audio CD series, metaphysical meditations, sourcing series, and sleep programming. Tara has also collaborated with Emmy Award-winning Shane Stanley and Marla Maples on numerous DVDs. Tara Sutphen is a master in the psychic sciences. If you'd like to find out more about Tara's work, upcoming seminars, and meditations to help you fulfill your dreams, visit her website at tarasutphen.com.
Welcome to Transformations with Tara. This is Tara Sutphen. And my guest today is Eric Allaman. He is an American composer. He's worked in film, television, theater, and ballet. His career as a film composer began when he co-composed the score to Ridley Scott's Legend with Tangerine Dream. And that opportunity led to Eric rescoring the silent classic Battleship Potemkin, which was re-released in Europe and featured at the Berlin Film Festival. Now, over 30 films and 500 episodes of television to his credit, Eric is the epitome of the working composer. Hey, welcome, Eric.
Good morning.
Good morning. Anyway, yeah, it's so fun to catch up with Eric because we've been friends for a very long time. So, and I love all his work, and it's hard to keep up with him because I'm sure it's way over 30 films now, isn't it?
It's actually 45 and 600 episodes of TV, so that must have been an old clip.
This is probably old. It was. I just grabbed it. It was like, oh, here's a wealth of information about Eric.
Yeah. I've been hacking away ever since.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, what is your latest project? Tell me.
Well, I just finished a really wonderful film with John Voight, which was called JL Ranch. And this was a film that featured James Caan, Melanie Griffith, Stephen Bauer, and Terry Polo. And it was a property rights issue between 2 competing families, rancher families of the West. And Charlie Carter was the director and Stephen Paul was the producer, and I was brought in on this film, and it really wound up being a wonderful project. It was a very high profile, one of these unusual things where the film was released, a limited release theatrically. That was a big television event about, I think, maybe a month later, I'm not sure. And it was my first Western. You know, I've been all over the map, Tara, as you know, at film scores, because my early days of Tangerine Dream, I did all this. Well, really was the beginnings of electronica in the 80s, when I did films like Vision Quest and Firestarter and then ultimately Legend. And, but, my career has forced me to adapt and, be able to do any type of style of music. And so this film was my first Western. And that's really what was great about it was because it was melody writing. And when it boils down to everything, I'm really a melodist, and melody writing is really my forte. So I was really thrilled to do this. And John Voight was just a wonderful, wonderful man to work with. And I got to know him quite well in this project. And so that wrapped up in August. And then it's just been, after that, it was this, I think the ballet that I mentioned, Camelot, which will be premiering at the Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Plaza in May of 2018, which Kim Maselli, who's the artistic director of the Pacific Festival of Ballet, and I wrote. It's our 3rd collaboration together, and we just finished up this year. So I was in Skopje in August recording the entire score. It's a 90-minute show with what's called the Sames Orchestra that's run by Laurent and Aude Kopitz in Skopje, and it's one of those affordable orchestras to work with in the world. So it was a treat to be over in that neck of the woods because I'd never been in the Balkans before, and that's pretty much where I've been at with the project at this point.
Gosh, do you have to learn the language when you're there? Do you have an interpreter? What happens?
No, and it's amazing. Everybody speaks English there. It's a very easy country to fly into. I mean, no, I shouldn't say that. It's very easy once you're there. You have to, from Los Angeles, you have to, the most direct route is to fly to Istanbul, and then you change flights there, and you fly an hour back west into Skopje. But everybody there speaks English. It's some of the friendliest people I've ever met in the world. It really, really, it was astonishing. The city was leveled by an earthquake, I think, in 1962, so it's been completely rebuilt. But it's a wonderful little country, and I got to do a traveling around in the Balkan states when I was there. We got to go to Kosovo and Albania and Greece. But very friendly. Everybody speaks English. They pull from musicians from all over that area, so their orchestra is comprised of the best musicians that are from Skopje in Macedonia, from Belgrade in Serbia, from Sofia, Bulgaria, and even musicians from Istanbul. And they're a very, very busy orchestra. They're doing over 250 dates a year, so they're playing all types of music, and they're playing all the time. So it was really a wonderful experience.
Really, yeah. It's so nice to be with people who really want to be dedicated.
Yeah, it was. It was really great. I've known them for a long time. I've usually recorded it in Russia. I think I mentioned to you before.
Yes.
Moss film with Sergei Skripka, and that's the Russian State Symphony Cinema Orchestra. But the only thing is, it's if you have to go quickly, there's now visas you have to get to go to Russia that take time, and it's a little bit more involved. It's not quite as easy. You can just fly into Skopje. Skopje is very, very inexpensive, as a lot of that part of the world is. So, you can. I mean, I would be in the center square, Alexander the Great Square there in the center of town, having, a bottle of white wine and a bottle of Perrier and, an entree and a salad. And I remember my meal would be about 10 or 11 euros, which was like about 12, 13 bucks.
Oh, that's
it was
beautiful,
right in the center of town. Yeah.
Wild. Yeah. Oh, so it's really affordable for people who want to go and experience some kind of old world culture.
Yeah, it's absolutely an incredible part of Europe to see if you, for any reason, but certainly if you're on a budget, because it's just, a third or fourth the price of going to Western Europe, and it's very interesting. There's a lot of mosques in all. It's a really wild. You drive through little towns, and as opposed to Western Europe where you drive in and there's a church in every town, there's a mosque in every town, and it's a very different part of the world, but there hasn't been any terrorism in these areas outside obviously of Turkey. And I found the people very, very friendly and very warm. It was a very unique experience.
Oh, wonderful. That's really wonderful. So when will that be available for all of us to watch?
The ballet, you say?
Yes.
Yeah, the ballet will be in May, the third week of May in 2018, and they'll be at the Fred Cabley Theater at the Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Plaza. That's the big 1,800-seat theater in Thousand Oaks, and that'll be Camelot in May of 2018. I also have, just to let you know, my second ballet that I wrote that's been done 3 times now, is going to be returning to the Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Plaza, the same theater, and that'll be May 19th. It opens up in Thousand Oaks. And that's Noah's Ark. Did you see that, Sarah?
I did. It was gorgeous. Yeah. It's really one of the most beautiful ballets I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Yeah, Noah's Ark.
Sweet to hear.
It was just so beautifully done. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know, and it's a really wonderful show for families. Kim and I designed these shows to be for families and as family entertainment. And so it's a really stunning piece. I think you remember when all the animals finally are gathered, they get onto the ark, and then finally in the second act, when after they find land again and they all depart the ark, there's just really dramatic moments, and it's really it's a beautiful tale, and it was really really well received. I don't know if I ever told you the story. Pat Boone was very, very excited about when he saw it, and Shirley Jones was there. There was a number of celebrities who saw it, and all these people were so excited about, we've got to take this on tour. You got to figure out how to take this tour to the Heartland, and we weren't really able to figure out how to find the right producer to take this on a scaled down version, take it on a tour, and spent some time on that, and in 2012 the show was done again. It premiered in 2010. But the thinking in this country so much in theater is either you're promoting a straight play, it's just words and dialogue, or a musical. And this concept of a show that was really sort of dance acted, which you saw, it was hard to find the right producer. So we had all this excitement and interest in it, but we could not find the right producer who knew how to take this show on the road. And of course, we had scaled it down. The production you saw was enormous. I think there's over maybe 150 people in the production, but we had scaled it down to about 20. And what we would have is we would have a scout that would go ahead of every city that we would go into that would cast about another 20 people to be various animals and people within the show that would be coached, and then we'd plug those people into the show. So it would be a real community-oriented production where people could be participating in the production as it came into their town. We had all this lined up, but we just couldn't find the right producer who took it on the road. And I always compared it sort of like, it's like what Michael Flatley did with Lord of the Dance. It was an amazing thing to think that, he made nearly $750 million on that show. And there was another show called Riverdance, was another permutation, and then there was Spirit of the Nation and Spirit of the Dance. So there's 3 of these shows that did really well in America. They were all based on Celtic dancing. So there's clearly a market for it. But man, finding the right people for it did not prove to be easy.
Right. Cheyenne was an Irish dancer. She loved it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, for years and years. We went to all sorts of, expeditions so she could dance all over the place. Yeah. So she, but she told me, she remembered all her past lives as a baby. She had this surgery that I had when I was a baby. And so I don't know, it just opened up the crack, and she would tell me, when she was about 4, she used to tell me that she was gonna be a baker when she was 55, and she was gonna live in Ireland in a beautiful cottage, and she was gonna get fat. She used to tell me that.
And drink plenty of Guinness, I suspect.
Right.
Too, yeah.
No, she doesn't drink really, but no, because she's really funny. Now she is a size 0, and she's this gourmet chef, and she works.
Yeah.
She has like a fabulous, job with, in a home. So she's so funny though, as far as like, nope, she cooks for everybody else, but there's no fat here. It's really funny. Anyway, so that's the Irish, but I love that ballet. I thought it was so colorful, and it was great.
Well, you have to bring her to it when it comes. You have to come. I'll get you tickets. You come to it in May.
I'd love to.
Bring Cheyenne. Yeah.
I will. Anyway, so, now it is interesting as far as people missing opportunities. I see that all the time, people missing opportunities. I don't know whether it's the lack of sight, because people want to have their own thing. But like you were saying with the, what was his name? Flatley. He was, this was just an opportunity, and he just, he decided to take it and run with it. But there's a lot of that because,
It was an incredible, from what I gathered, from what I learned about it, was that, the Euro Song Contest that was in Europe every year, and whoever wins it, it's in that host country, for example. So this one year, an Irish singer had won it, so it was hosted in Ireland the following year. And it's an amazing little story, because what happens, whatever country wins it wants to promote their cultural arts and their heritage. And so I guess this show goes on for 1, 2, 3 weeks or whatever, as they're eliminating singers to get down to the winner. And so they're constantly showing aspects of the host nation and their culture. And so they decided to put together a little 15-minute demonstration of Irish dancing for the Euro Song Contest, and it really took off. And Michael Flatley was one of these guys that was put together a little show. And then after that, it had such a buzz in Ireland that he put together he, with another group of people, expanded it to an hour, is what I remember reading, and then they toured all over Ireland. Subsequently, there was a producer in England who saw the Eurosong thing, and his name's slips my mind right now, but he decided to do the exact same thing in England at the time, and so he put together this troupe that was called Spirit of the Nation. The one that Spirit of Dance, I should say. And then that Michael Flatley was part of this one that was called River Dance. Well, as this thing started to grow in nature, Michael Flatley apparently didn't feel he was being compensated with everything he had done as initiating the show or being on the ground swell of it. So he broke away and created Lord of the Dance, and he featured himself in it. And so all three of these shows just took off. And of course, they came to America, and they were wildly popular for a long time.
Oh, yeah, they were popular. And to where Cheyenne, I don't know, whatever the past life she has with Ireland, she, I always rented a house for 3.5 months in the summer times when the kids were little, and in Scotland. And so they saw a lot of the Scottish dance. But she's always been, she was into Irish dancing before it became popular. But, she was right in that whole area where it really took off. Yeah, because of this guy, yeah. Yeah, it's great.
I know.
Yeah. So anyway,
yes,
management, some kind of management. But, maybe that's with your stuff too, as far as your ballets, there's going to be the right person who comes along and just wants to create that, because we're coming back, I think, to a time again where, everything's been kind of internet, electronic. I think a lot of people are getting kind of sick of looking at the screen all the time. Like, we really need to live a real life. So to see living color, to watch people dance, and it's wholesome entertainment, I think it's all coming back. Real books are coming back, LPs are coming back. We have to honor all that.
I hope you're right, and from your lips to God's ears, because recently I was the guest of honor at a big fundraiser for the Pacific Festival of Ballet, which is the resident ballet company in Thousand Oaks, and so I had to give a talk that night. And one of the things that I mentioned was that in just the art of dance, what's really interesting is that I feel that ballet and dance is suffering because there are not enough new shows being written. And the fact is, what you need new shows that create new opportunities for dancers and that create stars, and this is what dance is sorely lacking, and I pointed out in this talk that, for example, the film industry learned this over 100 years ago when they started promoting silent films. The early moguls realized we have to have stars that will be magnets to bring people into the theater. So, they developed people like Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks and Charlie Chaplin, and then people started coming to see these stars. And, sports is the same way if you think about it. What Babe Ruth did for baseball or Tiger Woods did for golf, the resurgence of golf in the 90s. And so ballet, that's what's been kind of a sad aspect of it, is that, you constantly have these same shows that are done over and over, whether it's Giselle or whether it's, the Nutcracker or Swan Lake or Sleeping Beauty. And they're fantastic shows. But the point is, it's a musical theater world, if you can imagine, almost like, say, since the 1920s, if nobody had written a new show since Showboat or Brigadoon. And so when you would go to Broadway, you would just see another production of Brigadoon or Showboat, just to see a different singer sing it. That's not going to be exactly that exciting for the general population, right? You want to see new shows like there's Hamilton now, or when Phantom came out or Les Mis. And this is what dance has been missing. So for Kim and I, a big part of our motivation was to try to create new shows in the dance world that would create more excitement, to bring people, like you say, into the theater to see real human beings performing and galvanize interest in it. So that was really our little mission in writing original shows.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's really great. I do. And just that you travel the world to find the right flautist and the right cello for people, everybody. You're working and bringing together so many wonderful opportunities for people.
Yeah, and they're all getting to be part of an artistic project that ultimately is just going to be a collaborative effort. A lot of people coming together to create something that hopefully is, a couple of great hours in the theater. So it's I've always loved dance. I love musicals. I love so many forms of music and all the arts, really. But
yeah.
Well, we're really excited about this show. It's in Camelot, the new show. There's so many permutations of this story that have come down through the years, but we really focus in on the love triangle of King Arthur after he marries Guinevere, and then of course he meets Lancelot, who he invites to be one of the Knights of the Round Table, and of course they become basically best friends. And then ultimately one day Lancelot and Guinevere meet, and of course it's basically like soulmates finding each other. And of course the tragedy is she's married to who is now Lancelot's best friend. So our version of Camelot focuses on this love triangle and the devastating aspect of when Lancelot and Guinevere hooked up behind Arthur's back, and then he finds out, and then he sentences her to death, and then the whole thing unfolds in the second act where Lancelot is forced to flee. Several of the knights are sent after him. He hears that she is going to be executed, so he returns and he saves her. And then there's this moment between he's captured with Guinevere right after he saves her from being burned at the stake. But there's a moment where Arthur confronts Lancelot and Guinevere in the dungeon, and he realizes he has really no option but to forgive them, and he forgives them and he sets them free. And it's simultaneously his kingdom is sort of falling apart because there's so much pandemonium and chaos that's going on. So he goes out to battle, and Lancelot joins him, but Arthur is slayed in this battle. And I kind of skipped over the first part, but Excalibur, which I should have began with, which he is given, and I mean he extracts from the rock in the first act. They decide to return to the Lady of the Lake, and so things go back to as they were prior to Excalibur being formed and Camelot coming into fruition.
Yeah,
but it's really a wonderful show the way we've laid it out, and we're really excited about this production.
Yeah, I was doing Mind, Body, Spirit festivals a lot in Europe and for years, and it's really fun to be invited to all sorts of rituals that they have down in Avebury, and then my friend Diane Harvey White and I would go down and like source at the Tor, which is you look through a Tor door, and it's supposed to be the land of Camelot, and to drink from the chalice well. Yeah, we love all that. It's really
cool. Well, yeah.
Mm.
Well, plus, we've got Merlin, of course, who finds the young Arthur on a beach, and of course you've got this. So what's really interesting about that piece is it's kind of the meeting of wizardry and warlock and mythological powers and the advent of Christianity and the conflict between them, the way of the old world and then this new religion and this new energy that's coming into Europe and changing everything. So that's sort of the background of the story too. And so you have these central characters of what Arthur represents, and then of course Merlin represents the old world and the way of wizardry and such.
Yeah.
It just lends itself to dance and wonderful costumes and special effects and.
Oh, I know. It becomes such a big project. It's really just you just have such a vision. I mean, because you're doing movie scores and television scores at the same time. I mean, this creativity that you have is on at all times.
It is, and I feel terrible when it's not.
I bet. Yeah, like twiddle. Well, yeah, but you surf and you ski in the meantime.
Yeah, yes, I know. I was on it a little bit yesterday, so I did get to fill the tank a little bit.
Good.
It was about 2 foot and horribly blown out, but I met an old friend, and then so we chatted about the state of the world in blown out conditions.
Good. Hey, so anyway, when you say that you credit your time in the land of Ibsen, Grieg, and Munch for awakening your creative calling, what does that mean?
Well, my mother's Norwegian. She was born in a little town called Kristiansund, Norway. It's on the northwest coast above Allaman and Molde. And so my first trip back to Norway was when I was 18 months old, and I went really probably every other summer and spent all my time there. We'd go back for 6 weeks. And as I started getting older, certainly I started playing piano when I was 7, but my grandmother was a classical pianist, and so she introduced me to a lot of classical music. And then I started getting introduced, for example, to the music of Edvard Grieg, and then in high school and in college, I got introduced obviously to Ibsen and his playwriting. And then Edvard Munch became one of my favorite artists. And
oh, yeah.
I was kind of going the route of being pre-med. My father was pretty concerned that I should be a doctor. I was pretty much forging my path that way. But I realized that I was developing these artistic insights and awareness and need to express myself in a way. And And this was the conflict I was going through as a late teenager and early 20s was, which path do I really pursue? And so it was really that time in Norway that helped me realize that I really did want to go into a more creative path. And so then I started to turn away from, a career in medicine and really pursued the arts because, here I was being really affected by, Munch's paintings, Ibsen's writings, and Grieg's music, and many others, too, not just them. But that's what really sort of helped me come to awareness of my creativeness and the desire to go into it. So that's really where that all comes from. And that's also why I decided I wanted to go back to Europe to live. After I finished my studies, I studied music and theater at UCLA. And after I graduated, I just realized, there's more of an appreciation for what I do in Europe, and I wanted to move back to Europe. And so I moved to Paris, lived there for about a year, and then I eventually wound up in West Berlin. And it was really that, and I stayed over there for about 3.5 years before I came back to Los Angeles to do film work.
Right. Interesting that you were called back to the U.S.
Well, what it was just when I was working with Tangerine Dream, I could see all the films were coming from Los Angeles. My dream was to go live in Europe and write music, but I could see that after being poor for a while, I realized when I started getting into film school, I thought I could make a living doing this. And then after working over there with them, I saw all the work is coming from Los Angeles, and then simultaneously, a lot of my friends that I graduated were also now writers. A lot of them were writers and developing projects in Hollywood, and they'd heard my score to Battleship Potemkin, the silent film, and Legend, and so I had an offer to come back for a film, and then I realized all the film work was really coming from back here, so there wasn't really a reason to stay in Europe. There weren't nearly as many opportunities, and so it's kind of this boomerang trip that I went off to discover my artistic senses in Europe, but then it really wound up bringing me back to Los Angeles because that's where so much of the work basically generated from. Right.
And still does, but you still use the world as it's this vision of yours, really, Eric. It's your vision. And you just use everybody. Yeah.
Well, because, since I lived in Europe, I had all those connections to orchestras and everything. And there's wonderful musicians here. There's nothing about not working with people here. It's just that, unfortunately, when you're on theater budgets, it's a sad state is a lot of ballets now are presented without an orchestra. And a lot of ballets across the nation are done to tapes, done to CDs. And because they can't afford to hire, a 60-piece orchestra every night accompany the dancers. And we've been affected by that. And so the fact is, we go over at least to Europe to record a real orchestra. We have a really wonderful recording of it that they perform to. And it's more affordable. It's often about a tenth the price of recording in America. So that's why we've often gone over there to record. I've recorded, as I mentioned, at Mosfilm in Moscow, and I've recorded St. Petersburg, Russia, and then in Belgrade, Serbia, and then most recently in Skopje, Macedonia.
Wow, what a wealth of just interesting insights as well of just what those places are about. I love that.
Oh yeah, and because a lot of my heroes came from Russia too. I'm a huge Tchaikovsky fan, and a lot of the Russian composers, and Prokofiev, for example. And so it was amazing to record at Mosfilm, which is a gigantic studio in Moscow. I mean, this is where Sergei Eisenstein, who directed Battleship Potemkin, amongst a number of other films, he worked with Prokofiev when he did Ivan the Terrible, for example. And Ivan the Terrible is one of the films that he did with Prokofiev in the Moscow studios. That's exactly where we recorded the score to Noah's Ark and the Sea Princess.
Wow. So now, so I want to talk about your album, The Diary of Berlin.
Berlin Diary, yes.
The Berlin Diary, yeah. So talk to me about that. Yeah.
Well, this was this is really a heartfelt project that goes back to my time in Europe. When I mentioned that I left Los Angeles after I graduated from UCLA, I went to live in Paris, and I was a little bit insane. I wanted to do nothing but write piano music, instrumental piano music, which is kind of a crazy idea because that's what I should have been doing about 100 years earlier, if I had lived at that point. But I went over there, and there was a recession, unbeknownst to me at the time, and there weren't many opportunities in Paris. And so I wound up ultimately in Berlin after a year. But I was writing piano music all the time, and it was of my frustrations, of my observations, of my goals, of my dreams, of my heartaches. Everything was going into these piano solos that I was writing at the time. I had one piece called By the Wall, another one called Forever Longing, another one called Time Against My Life. And they were it was basically my diary of those 3 years in Berlin. And when I came back, I continued to write piano music. And of course, now I was making money writing film music and television music. But I eventually wanted to document this time in Europe. And it's really from when I was about 23 to about 26, 27. And so the album is, for sale, for example, on all the typical outlets, iTunes, Amazon, everywhere. You can listen to it on Spotify. You can go to my website, which is just ericallaman.com, ERIC-Allaman.com. And you can go to my website and see some of the videos of me performing some of these works. But it really was of that era. It was like writing a biography, basically, but an oral biography that was just done to music. And there's a wonderful booklet in the album which tells you about each composition and what I was going through at the time and why I wrote it and what my influences were. And so it really documents that time. And plus, that world doesn't exist anymore. I lived there during the time of the Iron Curtain and behind the Berlin Wall. And, when you tell young people about this, it just doesn't even seem, it's so hard just to describe what it was like back then because the world has changed so much. But, Berlin used to have 2 walls that circled around the entire western half of the city, and it was sealed off. It was deep within communist East Germany, very close to the Polish border. All of those countries were sealed off from Western Europe. Those people were not allowed out. They couldn't travel to the West. They weren't free to do what they wanted to do. And then West Berlin was this little island that was tucked deep behind the Iron Curtain. And so it created a really bizarre psychological state in that city because, they knew the Russians could take that city in 7 minutes. I think it was documented at that point in time if they ever wanted to take the city. And so it was, it was a really amazing time. If you go to Berlin, I was back there last year, actually, twice, because I've got a show, a musical, Battleship Potemkin, that I wrote about, that I created with Jeffrey Couchman about the silent film that I scored years ago. But we were over there because this company, Galaxis, is developing it for a German premiere. And, there's still areas of Berlin where you can see the Berlin Wall. It's really wonderful that they left the parts of the wall up in certain areas so that you get a sense of what it was like back then, because it's a completely different city now, and it's gigantic. And I was told it was the most visited city in the world now, the most amount of tourists coming into it every month, and it's really fantastic. I love Berlin. It's an incredible place, but it has changed enormously. It's nothing like what it used to be.
Well, they waited until they could shine again. Yeah. I mean, there are people who appreciate shining, probably. Because, I know so many people will go too. Yeah. Yeah. They want
when the wall came down in '89, it opened up the door to rebuild Germany and recreate Berlin, and Berlin became the center of Germany and the political capital. And so it is completely transformed. It's really an unbelievable city to visit.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I haven't been there, but but I've been around. We've been around. You and I have been traveling. Like our Sagittarius, we're both Sagittarius, and man,
we have to wander.
Yeah, we're wandering.
We were born to wander. Yes,
but to be productive as we wander. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, no idle pleasure for you and I. It's all just work somehow. I love it.
I know.
It's almost like your shamanic call, is to soothe the masses with beautiful music and to, help mankind, like create jobs and be
well, it's
in
important
that
to see the world too,
Yeah, to be in the artistry of the world. It really is. I love your vision because, I don't know if you even like tap into it. It's just something that you do, as an everyday thing. You're just taking the next step toward it. What is your process? sometimes do you get like where, you're not sure about like where to step, what to do. And then all of a sudden, do you just play music for yourself? And then all of a sudden you get a project and then, you just go with it. What is your process?
Well, when I finally started becoming professional, I've been doing this over 30 years now. And when I started working professionally, in film and television, you have horrendous deadlines, any composer usually will tell you, and they're only becoming worse really as time goes by. I had a film, it's an interesting story, this was about 6 years ago. It was a big television movie called Secrets of the Mountain. It was a big television production where I'd been hired to do the score. Randy Jackson of American Idol had been hired to produce all these songs. It was going to be a big Friday night event, and just the way this thing unfolded, there was another composer that was attached. It didn't work out. They called me at the last second, and I basically had a week to write 63 minutes of orchestral score. And what that entailed was I had to write about 9 minutes. I averaged 9 minutes of orchestral writing every day for 7 days to get the 63-minute score done. I had to hire 3 orchestrators that I could send my compositions off to finish all the orchestrating, because we were recording this in Belgrade, Serbia, with a 60-piece orchestra. And
in a week.
One of those, in a week. And my agents, for example, told me they'd never seen a deadline this harrowing for any composer in over 30 years of their working. And you just had to make decisions on the spot and just run with it. And of course, you're trying to write the best music, the most appropriate music, but you have to be fast. And so that's sort of a nutshell of what my compositional life has been like when I score, is that you just never really have enough time. So you have to be very fast. Now, when I've done the ballets, of course, they're under Kim and my schedule. So I have much more time to write those. So I can think about those a lot more. And so my process can differ greatly based on the project. Theater projects in nature are so much more time consuming to come into development. So you have a lot more time in the beginning to write them. But in film and television, you're always the last thought. The composer of the music is the last thing to be added to the film or TV show, and that's a train that's moving with deadlines and premieres or dates that it's going to be on television. So you have to jump on board a moving train and quickly create what is needed. So it's a very different process where you have to really rely on your instinct to come up with things very, very fast. Where my theater work or my piano compositions, I've always thought that the most difficult pieces to compose, I think, are really solo piano pieces. They're the most taxing, most demanding pieces that you can come up with. When you think you've got a right hand that's often playing the melody, you've got a left hand that's creating harmony, and then you have to fuse those two, and then to make it entertaining for 3, 4, 5 minutes, that often becomes some of the most taxing kind of composition that I've ever done, compared to writing for a big orchestra or something. So, the various types of music that I do require different processes, and I enjoy all of them, actually. The importance for me to write musicals and theater music and ballets in particular was that I had done, like I mentioned, I've done 45 films now and over 600 episodes of television, and I did want to write some projects that were really who I was, like When You Saw Noah's Ark, for example, or any of my shows, where it's not something that's for a particular project that has to be in a certain style, like I mentioned, where I had to do Western music for John Voight's film, for example, or any other kind of show I've done where it's genre specific. It was important for me to write stuff that was really who I am, and that's why if you go to ericallaman.com, you can hear a lot of the compositions that are really on my social media.
Oh yeah, I love your website. Yeah,
that really are who I am, and so that it always, they're all different beasts and they take different processes. And I must say I enjoy the challenge of all of them. It's something very exciting about having 1 or 2 weeks, even though when I did that film, I dropped 10 pounds in 1 week. And I was thin to begin with, so it was just so stressful.
Yeah, that's not good.
It was so
well, you didn't eat because you couldn't. Yeah, you didn't have time. Yeah.
You'd wake up just living in fear of thinking, oh my God, I have got to write another 9 minutes today, Right.
Whereas, that pushes you to achieve, but oh my God, it's such an expense. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I can see where you go on top of the mountain and ski down it, and nobody can get a hold of you at that moment or out in the water.
Yes.
Surfing.
Well, particularly
That
surfing
time
is
to
so
meditate.
regenerative. Just to be out in the water amongst nature, it's so regenerative. I feel, and to get wet, it's like a baptism. It's always so, like yesterday I went down there and it was terrible conditions, right? But I so badly needed to get out. The wind was blowing. It was the wrong wind. It was 2-foot surf. It was miserable. But I had to get in the water just so I could regenerate and feel at peace and let the world slow down. Because you know this. You're so spiritual that what's interesting about surfing for me is 90% of surfing is waiting. You're sitting out in the water and you're just waiting. And, if you think about most of life is like waiting, right? Most of life is what will come next. You do what you do in your day to generate a little bit of money, and you have to eat a little bit. You have to pull resources together to make it through the day. But we are constantly in a state of being, and we're waiting. And so when you get out in the water, you're forced to wait for the waves. You're not in control of it. You can't control when they come or from what direction they come from. So you just have to be yourself and calm down and enjoy the moment. So that's so soothing and medicinal for me to have that experience. I've done it all my life, and I find that it's very important for me to get back to that and return to that. And then, as you're out there, you see fish or the pelicans or the sea life, and it's such a grounding experience. So I find that one of the ways that it really centers me and really kind of allows me to ultimately get pregnant again with ideas.
Yes. Yeah. I've studied meditation all over the world the last few years, and it's been really interesting. Just that, I'll take like Vedanta classes and, in Thailand or, all these different China, different meditation classes but everywhere do all these different meditation and John of God in Brazil. To whereas it's really interesting to meditate, have that time to come back into grounding. So that's really super important. I've really found that because when you meditate every day, you know that your life works so much better. It's like, I knew through hypnosis and meditation, but sometimes there are, I feel that if you're working on a specific thing, then hypnosis and meditation are really super great for that. And especially like if you're needing a CD or MP3 to be guided toward it, if your mind won't settle down. But if you do a meditation where you're just in your center for 10 minutes or so, sometimes that's is the rejuvenation that you need. So that's probably what you're getting on the surfboard.
Well, you're so right, because I tell you, what I've noticed in my life, when I have crazy, deadlines on projects, for example, and like that film I told you about where you have to work just the minute you wake up all the way till you drop in the evening. In those times when I'm really, really creative, I find that over time, as you're working like that, you're sort of becoming spiritually thinner and not as deep, because all your energy is going to this one thing of creative output. And over time, it's exhausting, it's depleting. And when you don't have work as an artist, can be a frustrating time for artists too. But at the same time, that's when you start to you have the opportunity to become spiritually deeper and richer by like you say, like by meditating or finding quiet time to be grateful for what is going on in your life, and to try to find calm and peace in the world. And so I am constantly torn asunder between these two, where I'm in really busy times where I don't have the time to meditate or get spiritually centered because of the driving deadlines that I have, as opposed to times where, for example, there is very little work or no work, and then you can really try to replenish yourself. And that's always the conflict for me, is trying to reach that happy medium all the time, of when can you meditate and get spiritually centered and restore yourself, because you need that so desperately, I think, in this world. Yeah.
Well, I do it now, I do it a lot to stay really present. And I have found, I was a psychic reader for Guru Dev, who is the Sikh saint for this in September. And it was a great honor to be asked to be in his entourage. And, because I'm not a Sikh, but I believe in, this whole, world of spiritual enlightenment, and they do the Kundalini yoga, and it was a medical program that he was teaching, and it was really interesting as far as they do different positions for like 11 to 22 minutes. You stay in a pose, and I believe, and as I witnessed it, I felt it was like keys opening the chambers of the brain, and maybe keys to the universe. Because they're all, like, as a psychic reader, I read everybody, and they're in white, they're egoless type people, eating really clean, just being in their center, and it was so interesting who they are in the world. There was so many real leaders in the world, because you don't know who they are, but they are players, big, because they believe it's their duty to give seva, which is, their duty to give to mankind. And so it was just really fun as far as I should probably like look up what some of them are for the creative outlets. You would love it. On your surfboard, I can just see now. I'll hold this for 5 minutes until that wave comes. Yeah.
It is important, I tell you, it's important to find that time and to get centered and
well, you don't really have that time. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm sure there's a stretch of here to 2 or 3 days or a week, maybe even 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden you're probably like, okay, I can be super busy again. It's probably like you're ultra busy or you're not busy at all. Yeah.
Yes, that's the curse of the career.
Yeah, the creative process. I know.
It's all or nothing.
Yeah, it's great though. So I want everybody to be able to find you. It's ericallaman.com. It's ERIC, and then Allaman is all A's. ALLAMAN.com. So, and you can watch some of the videos of Berlin Diary and some of your other works. I mean, it just lists basically, all the movies and all the shows, or some of them anyway.
Yeah, they can go to my website and they can get a real nice sampling of everything I do. And also you can go to iTunes, for example, and just plug in Eric Allaman, and several of, all 3 of my ballet, 2 of my ballets are on there. The third one hasn't been mixed yet, and Berlin Diary's up there. There's several film scores. Last summer I did 2 horror films, of all things, Exeter with Marcus Nispel and Lost After Dark with Ian Kesner. Both of those scores are there, and various works that I've done through the years are available on all the typical digital outlet stuff. And iTunes is one of the easiest places to go, which people are, probably most used to.
Right. Well, sometimes it's just easier to get it off the website these days. So, I think it's just easier. But
if you go to the website, it directs you everywhere. You can go to Spotify, you can go to iTunes, you can go to every possibility of an outlet picking it up.
Yeah. So what is the most favorite thing that you worked on, like say in the last couple of years?
Well, the one that's the dearest to my heart is probably Battleship Potemkin. It's my musical that's based on that silent film, which I scored years ago. I mentioned in Berlin when it was re-released at the Berlin Film Festival. I turned this into a musical with my librettist Jeffrey Couchman, and it's a sung through musical, which means every word is sung, and it's basically for lack of a better comparison, it's very much like Les Miserables meets Phantom of the Opera, and it's about a mutiny in 1905 that takes place on a Russian battleship, and the sailors are being overworked. They're treated almost like prisoners of war, the way the Russian Navy at the time under the Tsar was treating them. And the musical begins off with the fact that it's night, and the men are talking, and the sailors, that is, and they're being watched by the officers, almost like they're prisoners. And they whisper the fact that Ivan has been killed. Ivan is dead, and Ivan is the beloved the chef, the cook of the ship, and something's happened. And so it's this murder mystery that unfolds, and as they start to explore what happened, one of the men starts to become a leader of them and says, we are being treated basically like we're prisoners of the state. We're enemies of the state. We've got to do something. And, of course, at this point in Russia was going through massive upheaval. The communists were rising. You had so many insurrections throughout the country, and it was sort of a metaphor of what was happening for the entire country on this ship. And so basically the officers start treating the men worse because they realize they're losing control. The end of the first act ends with a mutiny. The leader of the mutiny is killed. His name is Vakulunchuk, and his young friend Alyosha, who is just a young, scared 20-year-old who dreams of nothing but just returning to his port city of Odessa to be with his wife and child, is basically realizes, oh my God, what do we do now? We've taken control of the ship, and our leader is dead. So the second act opens up with all these sailors returning to the city of Odessa, and they don't know what the hell to do. And they know that the Tsar is going to call out the fleet, and that the Cossacks will come to attack them, and they only have a few moments to figure out what they're going to do. And they decide to sail off to Romania, but before they do that, the Cossacks arrive and start shooting this mass. It's basically a massacre that happens in Odessa, and this Alyosha, this young man, his wife and child are killed in front of him on the Odessa staircase. It's a very famous moment in the film when this baby carriage went down the staircase. And basically he's destroyed. So him and several of the sailors get onto the ship, and they realize we've got to sail away and galvanize a return to come back and try to save our country, but we have to get away. And so it's almost ultimately a show of anticlimax where they won't be able to save the day that day, but they realize that their moment will come soon. Sometime in the future, they'll have their moment to return to Russia and save the country, and which is what happened with the Bolshevik Revolution. This attempt of the Russian Revolution that failed in 1905, but 12 years later when Lenin reorganized it, they all came back and were able to overthrow the Tsar and take over their country. So it's a very, very emotional, dramatic piece, and it's a cast of 12, and we staged it at the York Theater in New York and the Algonquin Theater at Manasquan, New Jersey, and this wonderful woman, Bettina Miga, saw it in New York and licensed it from us, and it's been translated to German, and they are now looking for the right theater to have the world premiere in Germany. And so we're sitting around with our thumbs twiddling, dying for this world premiere. We're waiting for the right theater and city to bite onto this and move it forward. So that's really been the project that's been, my real pet project over the last couple of years.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Well, I think, when you have your passion for something, I think that it's just kind of moving it towards the next stage. Like it's I should probably source with you a little bit to whereas, bringing in the right person to want to manage that or want to produce that. I mean, that's kind of the key on some of this stuff. I've been doing that so much more, but I want to do someday, all of us, do, past life regression, because your creativity, it's like, where did you get this creative? Where did this come from? What
I would love to do that with you. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really fun, actually.
I'd like to know.
Yeah. Hey, so we're coming down into the end of our show here, but I want to just allow you to just wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving if you want to say something to everyone.
Well, thank you. Yes, thank you. That's wonderful that you offered that. And I do want to wish everybody out there a happy Thanksgiving. It's an important time, I suspect, for all of us, just because it's a time to reconnect with our families. And, it's a crazy, wild, challenging world out there. So it's wonderful, I think, to have this time right now. And I wish everybody the best Thanksgiving possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And, it's a world that we create, and we must create it in love with our families, our friends, and going into our creativity. I mean, we see Eric, you're just such a great example of, you've been frustrated at times that you didn't feel that it went fast enough, but boy, your whole life has been on the fast track, really. Yeah. You should gulp those.
It seems like that, but there's, it's funny. There's certain things that feel like they take forever. Like my musical and these ballets, they're such long processes. They take so long to come into development that it's I mean, they're wonderful artistic outlets, but they're, you know, you want them to move forward. They're like children. You want them to develop and grow up and become, you know, independent of you. And so until they're independent, you have to constantly be nursing them and taking care of them and try to get them to the right people. Right. And that's what's constantly a challenge.
Yeah. I love it, though. Thank you, Eric, for being on the show.
Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful chatting with you.
Yeah, you too. Lots of love, everybody. Blessings.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for sharing your time with Tara Sutphen. Find out more about Tara's work, upcoming seminars, and meditations to help you fulfill your dreams by visiting her website at tarasutphen.com.